Welcome in, everyone, to another deep dive.
Yeah, always exciting to jump into these.
We get these sources from you guys out there listening, and we really try to pick out the most interesting stuff and present it to you.
I mean, it saves everybody so much time.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, who has the time these days to just sort of wade through all this, material?
Right, right.
So today, we're going to be talking about mental health, mental well-being.
Yeah, very, very important topic.
Extremely important, and the sources that we got were some excerpts from a podcast.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's called Hello and Welcome to Speak English and No More .pdf, which is a very strange title.
Interesting title.
Yeah, very interesting. And we're going to try to sort of pull out some of the, I guess, the actionable, information from this.
Yeah, like what can people actually use in their lives?
Exactly. Exactly. So, I guess to kind of start broadly, I was struck by how seriously mental health is taken in this. It's treated with the same gravity as physical health.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point because for so long, it's kind of been seen as this separate thing.
Afterthought.
Yeah, like, oh, if you have time for it. But, it really is as crucial as our physical health. And, one of the experts, Dr. Smith, they actually define mental health. And they say it's emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So it's like a whole package.
Okay, so it's much broader than just, sort of the absence of a diagnosed illness.
Right.
It's really about your whole state of being.
It's all-encompassing, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So when we talk about emotional well-being, psychological well-being, and social well-being, um, what does that really mean? I mean, how do those sort of break down?
Yeah, I think emotional well-being is kind of like how well you manage your feelings,
Yeah.
Can you express them appropriately? Um, do you feel a wide range of emotions?
Do you understand them?
Exactly. And then psychological well-being is more about like your sense of purpose,
Hmm.
you know, um, do you feel good about yourself? Do you accept yourself? And then social well-being is having those healthy relationships with others, feeling connected.
So it's interesting because they're all sort of interconnected.
They really are, yeah.
Like, if one is suffering, they're probably all suffering.
Absolutely. And Dr. Smith emphasizes this point. They really highlight why mental health is so fundamental.
Why is that?
Well, because it affects everything. It underpins our thought processes, our emotional responses, how we behave in all aspects of life.
Our decision making.
Totally. Yeah, it affects everything. And, it was interesting to hear Dr. Smith talk about the universality of mental health challenges.
Really?
Yeah, they were saying, things like anxiety, depression, trauma, stress. These aren't just isolated incidents. They touch people everywhere, across all walks of life.
So it's very normal, actually, to experience some kind of mental
Yes,
health.
it's part of being human.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just that acknowledgement, it normalizes it, it destigmatizes it, and I think that's a really important first step to actually addressing these issues.
Yeah, I agree, because so often people suffer in silence because they feel like they're the only ones.
Right, and I think when we realize that others are going through similar things, it can be a real comfort, and
Well,
maybe it can motivate us to actually seek support, to reach out.
yeah, absolutely. So then Dr. Smith goes into, I thought, some really practical advice, really practical guidance on how we can actually actively prioritize our mental well-being. And this is where the idea of self-care comes in,
Right, and this isn't just like, bubble baths and face masks, although those can be lovely.
although they can be part of it.
They can be part of it, right? But what Dr. Smith is really talking about is ensuring sufficient sleep, engaging in regular physical activity, maintaining a healthy diet, and making time for activities that bring you joy and relaxation.
It sounds so simple.
It does, but in our busy lives, it can be so easy to neglect these foundational elements.
Yeah.
We're always sort of rushing around.
Exactly. And the research really backs this up. For example, consistent sleep patterns. They directly impact the prefrontal cortex, which is crucial for emotional regulation.
Okay.
So if you're not sleeping well, your ability to manage your emotions is going to be compromised.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So these really are the basic maintenance for our minds and bodies. And I think that's such a key takeaway because they are so interconnected.
Yeah. And it's really hard to separate the two, right? I mean,
Wow.
if you're stressed out, your body is going to show it.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Absolutely. It's a two-way street.
Yeah. Okay, so Dr. Smith also talked about mindfulness, which I think is a term a lot of people have heard but maybe don't fully grasp.
Yeah, it's become a bit of a buzzword.
It's everywhere these days, yeah.
But what does it actually mean in practice, right?
Exactly.
So Dr. Smith, they articulate it really well. I think they say it's about being present in the current moment, without judgment, like really just observing your thoughts and feelings as they arise without getting carried away by them. So it's really about being in the moment.
Yeah, and not letting our minds run wild with worries about the future or regrets about the past.
Yeah, I can see how that would be very beneficial.
It is, and there's a lot of research to support it. Studies have shown that mindfulness can be incredibly helpful in reducing stress, anxiety, even symptoms of depression.
It sounds almost too simple.
It does. Like, can it really be that easy? But it really can make a difference.
So you're not trying to stop those thoughts and feelings, you're just sort of recognizing them and letting them pass through.
Yeah, it's about changing our relationship to those thoughts and feelings instead of being controlled by them.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really key takeaway for anyone who's struggling with those kinds of negative thought patterns.
Okay, so we also got some insights from a mindfulness coach, Sarah, and she kind of delves even deeper into the practicalities of managing stress and anxiety.
She does, and she starts by kind of painting this picture of the world we live in and all the things that contribute to stress and anxiety.
Yeah, we live in a very stressful time.
We do, right?
You.
And she points to things like work pressures, financial strain, relationship dynamics, all that stuff. And then she talks about this constant influx of information and societal expectations, which I think social media really amplifies.
It's just so much.
It is, and it can be overwhelming.
I mean, it's like we're constantly bombarded with stimuli and demands.
Yeah, there's very little time for our minds to just, decompress and reset.
Exactly, exactly. So Sarah gives us some concrete techniques, actionable tools that we can integrate into our daily routines to kind of help counteract this pressure. And the first one she talks about is deep breathing, right?
Right. And I love this one because it's so simple and accessible.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah, and what I find fascinating is the physiological link that she highlights. So when we're stressed, we tend to take these shallow, rapid breaths,
We
right?
kind of hold your breath sometimes.
Yeah, I do. Exactly. And so what Sarah's saying is, by consciously shifting to these slow, deep breaths, it can directly calm our nervous system. It interrupts that stress response.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It is. It's like this really powerful reminder of that mind-body connection, right?
Yeah,
You can control your breath, you can control your body, and that can actually change how you feel mentally.
that's amazing. Okay, so Sarah also talks about progressive muscle relaxation. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So this is a little bit more structured, but it's still pretty simple. It involves tensing and then releasing different muscle groups throughout your body, usually starting from your toes and working your way up.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah. And the idea is that by becoming really aware of that physical sensation of tension and relaxation, you can start to recognize and release tension when it pops up in everyday situations due to stress or anxiety.
So you're kind of training your body how to relax.
Exactly. And then hopefully that cues your mind to follow suit.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And then, of course, mindfulness meditation comes back up with Sarah, but this time with a focus on managing stress and anxiety.
Right. And the key takeaway here, I think, is that with consistent practice, mindfulness meditation helps us observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. So we can recognize those anxious thoughts, those feelings of stress, but instead of reacting immediately or spiraling into worry, we can observe them with a sense of detachment, like watching clouds drift by.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, and this creates a space between the thought or feeling and our response to it.
Yeah.
And that can really diminish its power over us.
It's so interesting because it's not about pretending those thoughts and feelings aren't there. It's about changing our relationship with them.
Exactly, and that's such an important distinction because we can't just will ourselves to not feel certain things, but we can learn to respond to them differently.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Okay, so the last section of our deep dive focused on cultivating resilience. And these insights came from Dr. Johnson.
Right, and they define resilience as the ability to bounce back from adversity, trauma, or significant stress. And I think that's such an important concept because life is full of challenges.
Yeah. It's not about avoiding those challenges. It's about what we do when we face them.
Exactly, and Dr. Johnson emphasizes that resilience is key for maintaining good mental health, which makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
Because we need to be able to cope with those inevitable ups and downs.
Absolutely. So what are some of the strategies that Dr. Johnson highlights for building resilience?
Well, one that I found really insightful was the idea of developing a growth mindset, which is all about shifting our perspective.
Okay.
So instead of viewing challenges as, insurmountable obstacles or signs that we're not good enough, we start to see them as opportunities for learning and growth.
So it's about changing that internal dialogue, right?
Totally.
Instead of saying, I can't do this, you're saying, I can learn how to do this, or I'm not good at this yet.
Exactly. And there's research to show that people with a growth mindset tend to experience less stress and recover more quickly from setbacks compared to those with a fixed mindset, the ones who believe that their abilities are set in stone.
So it's really about embracing challenges as opportunities to learn and grow.
Exactly. And that can be so empowering.
It can be, yeah. And Dr. Johnson also talks about the importance of our connections with others, which we've touched on a little bit already.
Right. And this is huge. Having a strong and supportive network of relationships, you know, people who offer emotional support, practical help, just a listening ear, it can make a world of difference when you're going through tough times.
I mean, we're social creatures, right? We need that connection.
We do, and those connections act as a buffer against stress and adversity. They remind us that we're not alone in our struggles.
Yeah, I think sometimes just knowing that someone else understands what you're going through can be incredibly helpful.
It can, and it can also give you the strength to keep going.
Absolutely. And then Dr. Johnson circles back to self-care, which is a theme that's woven throughout this entire deep dive.
Right, and what they emphasize here is that self-care isn't just a nice to have, it's a fundamental component of building resilience.
Okay.
By consistently taking care of our physical, emotional, and mental needs, we strengthen our ability to cope with stress and adversity when it comes up.
It's like putting money in the bank for when you need it.
Exactly. It's preventative maintenance for your mental well-being.
I love that analogy. Okay, so just to kind of bring it all together in this deep dive into hello and welcome to Speak English and no more.pdf, we've learned about the importance of mental health, what it actually means, the common challenges that we all face, some techniques for managing stress and anxiety, and then the importance of resilience.
Right, and what I think is really striking is how interconnected all of these elements are. Self-care isn't just some isolated activity. It's the foundation of our mental health. It affects how we manage stress. It contributes to our resilience. It's all connected.
It's a holistic approach to well-being.
Exactly. And mindfulness, it's not just some trendy concept. It provides these really tangible tools for being present and responding to difficulties with more calm and clarity.
Yeah, and I think that's really what we've been talking about this whole time is just this idea of approaching mental health with the same seriousness and intentionality that we approach physical health.
Absolutely. It's not about seeking a quick fix. It's about making consistent choices that support our overall well-being, both physically and mentally.
What's about the long game?
Exactly. It's about building a foundation for a healthy and fulfilling life.
So I think this is a good place to leave our listeners with a final thought, right? Thinking about all that we've learned about self-care, about stress management, about resilience, what's one small concrete step you could take today? Whether it's incorporating a brief mindfulness exercise, getting an extra hour of sleep, or even just reaching out to a friend.
Yeah, that's a great point. It doesn't have to be something huge, just one small action. And that could be the start of something really significant, a journey towards greater mental and emotional strength. And who knows, maybe it'll inspire you to seek out more information, more tools, more support to keep building on that foundation.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we hope you found it insightful and empowering.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Connect with us on social media. Let us know what resonated with you, what you're going to try. And as always, keep sending us your sources. We love exploring them with you.
Until next time.
See you then.